Hi everyone, my name's Michael and welcome to another episode of Amarok Weekenderlander, where we're more than just a daily but we're definitely not an overlander. Today we're going to talk about the draw system I've got in the back of the truck, why I chose to build it rather than buy it, briefly cover some of the choices that I made in relation as to why I've gone for a roller shutter and the tent the way it is rather than going for a canopy or something like that. But before we get started, let me just get the truck spinned around so that I can have it in a bit of a better position, and then I'll bring you in just that little bit closer before we dive into the back of the truck. When I first bought this truck, it originally had a fiberglass canopy on the back, and I quite often get asked, why did I get rid of that if I've got so much gear that I take camping? And the main reason is because I wanted this tent to be lower than the height of this cab. Also, I've seen this set up on quite a few sort of the American Overlander channels, you know, Last Line of Defence, Talon Sai and all that sort of stuff. And I just love how it looks on their Tacomas. And given that we don't get Tacomas here in the UK, unfortunately I would love one. I went for the Amarok, and then this is the setup that I chose to go for. I've got a mountaintop roller shutter, front runner bars, and then obviously the iCamper tent. If you want any more information on that, let me know in the comments below, and it's a video that I could look at making in the future. So we got rid of the fiberglass shell because the fiberglass doesn't support the weight of an iCamper with people in it as well. I had two options basically. I go for the RSI Smart Canopy, which is really expensive but looks really smart and would have fit really well, or I could have gone for the Alucab Canopy Camper, which is sort of the absolute long-term dream. Hopefully we can get there one day, but you know, obviously they are quite expensive. If you haven't seen them, I would highly recommend you have a look at them. They are really, really cool. But for now, I'm absolutely over the moon with my iCamper as a purchase, and I'm going to show you today the system that I've made in the back of this truck in terms of storage, to make it just that little bit easier to get stuff, particularly at the back of the bed. You know, I'm not very tall, so climbing in and out wasn't particularly something I wanted to do a lot. So without further ado, let's get in the back of the truck. I'll show you where my gear is. Now, just a little caveat before we get in the back of here. Two things on an Amarok. Annoyingly, the back tailgate isn't operated on central locking. You can get an aftermarket part for it. I just haven't done that yet. So to unlock it, it is opened with the key manually, which is a little bit annoying, and also a bit of a security concern of something that I want to address in the future that is coming. And the second thing is I bought my mountaintop roll second hand, and the retraction spring doesn't really work. In fact, it doesn't really work. It doesn't work at all. The top retracts, but it doesn't retract in the same way that it should in terms of automatically going all the way back. So I have got to push it back in. But without further ado, so this is what you are greeted at with originally. I am going to sort of pull the shutter back. I'm going to get everything out and just put it to the side of the truck so that I can talk you through the draw system first. So like I've just said, I'm going to get everything out of the bed of the truck and just put it down the side so that you can see just how much stuff I'm able to fit in this bed, even though we are a little bit limited on some space constraints because of the shutter. I'm going to talk through them in a second, but first off, let's get down to the bed drawers. So as you can see, there's a lot of stuff comes out the bed of this truck, and it's all nice and neatly organised in these drawers. The problem is usually trying to make sure that we can get it back in the way that we took it out. We are still very much perfecting the packing procedure to make sure everything goes back in. So I would be very surprised if I can manage to get all of that back in perfectly. Normally on the back seat of the truck we will have our sort of additional food box. Clothing is in boxes as well. We prefer boxes to bags. It's just easier to get them out. I'll have a box, my partner has a box. We usually have a box of firewood. Any other sort of ancillaries. The only thing that actually isn't in the bed that sort of I'm going to talk about today is the level and ramps that are sort of really, really important, I think, for these. If you haven't seen my top 10 sort of iCamper and rooftop tent mods, hacks and tips, you know, I cover in there just how important it is to make sure that everything's level, and I would highly recommend that you get some kind of ramps. Some people use Max Tracks, but I don't really like the lack of step for them. The ramps I've got are actually caravan ramps, which I use just to level the truck up and down. So just so you've got an idea of everything that we've got, you know, we don't like to rough it when we come out, hence why we've got an iCamper with an inflatable mattress inside as well. So we bring everything, that's everything that we would need for a weekend away basically, or a longer trip. This is what we took when we did a 7-day trip around the Lake District in Easter. You can fit a lot in here despite it being limited by the height of the roller shutter and some of the other things. So without further ado, let's have a look. Let's get in a bit closer and have a look at these drawers themselves. Right, so this is it. These are the drawers. They're all made from 18mm or 3/4 inch hardwood ply. I've routed all the edges so that they're smooth, and the idea was that it's strong but very easily removable. You might be able to just about see it down here. There's a turnbuckle on either side, and that is all that it takes to hold this into the truck's normal sort of factory fit lashdown points. There is a little bit of a constraint, which you might be able to see back here, and this is where the roller shutter cassette goes into, so I have got a bit of a height limit there. And at the minute, that's just kind of wasted space. My plan is, if it fits, is to potentially put a leisure battery in there, because then that way it's out the way. It doesn't need to be ready accessible, and I'll put some like control boxes up in this area or on that side, somewhere like that. What we've got here is basically 3 or 4 lanes, as I like to call them. This side's for sort of bigger stuff, which is like our air tent, our cooker. So there's 2 drawers on each. We're going to talk about the drawers more in a second. And then the far lane is a little bit sort of more governed because it's got the in-bed power supply, so it's not quite as big. This is the bigger side, and it was done that way on purpose. So like I say, I chose to make these so they're far from perfect. You know, you will see some like little dinks in here because they have been used for sort of 3-4 months now. But let me talk you through the drawers themselves. They are sort of lockable so that then they don't slide out or rock around a little bit, and then they just pull out. Little bit of a tip if you're trying to make these on a little bit of a budget like I was. Bed sliders in this length, sort of 60 inches, are really expensive. I was looking at the best part of £200 for the sliders as 2 pairs. So what I've actually done is I've used high density polyethylene, or HDPE, which is essentially just chopping board material. There's a local plastic supplier called Bay Plastics, literally 5 minutes from my house. I ordered exactly what I want, which was probably about that thick, the full length of this with a little bit of spare, and I think it was about £50 at the time that I bought it, just around Christmas of 2022. So I don't know how sort of global prices have been affected, but I saved the best part of £150 on sort of a sliding mechanism by avoiding drawer slides and just using polyethylene. Coated everything in Raptor liner, which was very expensive. Pro tip, I would make sure that you prime your wood first before using any kind of spray, because this took about 8 cans of Raptor at about £17 a can, which was way more than I was expecting. I was kind of, originally I bought 3 cans and it just ended up using loads more. So I've kind of really lost a bit of the Raptor texture, but what I wanted was to make sure that it was waterproof and water resistant at least, and it seems to be so far. Everything else is just held together with an abundance of pocket screws, an exterior grade wood glue. Put a nice sort of rounded profile on here, just had a bit of a play with a router. It was something that I bought to make this project, and a track saw. So all I had was 3 sheets of ply, of which I didn't use 1, so I only really used 2 sheets of ply on this. I have then had a track saw and a router, and then those are what I bought, and then just obviously needed like a jigsaw and various other things that I had. Importantly, at the time, I did not own a table saw. You do not need a table saw if you're just going to use a track saw. The idea is that it's self-contained. This shouldn't tip if there's nothing in the back and the fridge is on the front, because the fridge will be heavy. There is kind of sort of a retaining mechanism on each side, these bits of wood here, just to stop it sort of rocking forward. It will pull all the way out, so that's something you've got to be careful of. There is no stop on there. It's something that I originally designed in, but then it just became a bit clunky and was making it difficult to put the drawers in, so I got rid of it. Like I say, this one here is specifically for the fridge, hence why it's got the handle with the lash down points. And the other drawer is identical, but just the place of this mid divider is ever so slightly different, because it has been made sort of bespoke for what's going in there. Which might not have been sensible sort of for future upgrades, which we'll talk about later. But yeah, that's the drawers in a nutshell. They've been very good, and the way that they've been designed, I'm very pleased with. You know, I did think about this for a very long time. There's various different hand-drawn designs and things that I've made over the probably about the best part of 12 months that I thought about this before I started making stuff. And I think that's why I've ended up with a product that I'm so happy with, because I did think about it for so long. Something else that was a conscious design decision when I made these and where I was going to put the fridge and things. Obviously I was constrained on the fridge because the power cable is on that side of the truck, using the in-bed power, which is something that we will talk about shortly, because there is something that I've built into these drawers to accommodate that. But the other thing as well is that we live on the driver's side of this vehicle when we use it. The way that we've done it is that the idea is that the fridge lives here, one of the food boxes lives here that you can pull all the way out, and then this becomes a working space. I am going to build some kind of either plastic or wood surface here just to level this out, because that's obviously really harsh on your knees, but also really hard to cook on if you're trying to put a stove out or something like that. But the idea is that we'd have our air annex or air tent set up over there, and then that we've got a work surface here if we want to work from it. Say we don't want to use the table, or we're maybe boondocking a little bit and just park it up somewhere like we are today, so I could quickly, you know, whack out a meal or a prep surface here, what is going to come in the future is the boxes are going to be replaced. We'll talk about more about that in probably a different video. And the idea is that the lid of one of those boxes will become this work surface so that it's multi-purpose. And like I say, here you can see it wouldn't pull out even if the fridge is here. So you've got that full sort of workspace there. What's that, 270 degrees that you could use, so that you can then get straight in the fridge, prepare, and then walk off into camp so that it's nice and easy to use. Right, this is going to be a little bit odd because I'm kind of trying to perch in between here, but it's just so I can point and see at the same time. You might have noticed already that there's a hole here, and you might be thinking, why is that there? That is to allow the power cable for the fridge to run into the power cable here, which is already wired in on a VW Amarok, for ignition power. So when we're driving, because there is no secondary battery in this vehicle yet, so the plan is that when we're driving, we drive and power the fridge off the ignition power. Then when we get to camp, we either don't have power, which is not ideal, or we have a shore plug-in, or sort of a hookup that you would call it in this country, and then we would run that into the tent so that you can then run the fridge off AC power rather than DC that it runs off on the ignition. And the way that it's done is that the fridge can remain plugged in and slide in and out the cables long enough. That's why I've cut it in the place that I have. There's actually just a really nice little design feature that worked quite well to stop the cable snagging over the top and things like that as well. And that's why this one's a little bit lower than that side as well, this wall here, just for easier access. Eventually there might be sort of a battery and a control unit around here, and I might have to rethink that plan, but we'll work that out as and when we get to the leisure battery, but that's probably not going to happen until next year. Overall, I'm really happy with my decision to build my drawers rather than buy them. Yes, there are things I would do differently if I was to build them again, but realistically I'm probably never going to build them again because they are fit enough for purpose that they can either be modified to do what I want, or I wouldn't have to rebuild everything. There are just bits and pieces that I would rebuild maybe differently. You know, I am thinking about putting a big cutout in here, again just to save weight for under the fridge. The same on this central divider of lane 1 and lane 2 to again save weight, because I did it under the drawers and it took out a big chunk of ply, you know, 18mm thick, probably about that much. Either way, on both lanes, it's a weight saving worth having. It makes it easier to get the drawers in and out as well, because you can just lift them onto your shoulder. The reason why I didn't buy them, and I'm still happy with that decision to not buy them, is one, they are really expensive. Yes, this wasn't cheap because I bought tools, but I look at them as a lifelong investment rather than a single project cost. But the other drawers that you can buy also come really quite high in a bed because they're meant to be used with a canopy. And yes, I would love a canopy, but the canopy that I want is either £2,500 for the RSI or about £12,500 for the Alucab canopy camper. Fingers crossed one day that will happen, but you know, it's just not realistic with the setup that I have. So I'm really happy with the mountaintop roll because it's got the T-slots in for the tent. It gives me so much space, as you've seen by the amount of equipment that I managed to carry with me, without actually intruding on the cab in a minimal way. And like I say, they just work, and I'm so pleased with how well that HDPE works as a drawer slide. There's very little wear on the bottom of this because, you know, it is essentially a self-lubricating plastic, so it means I can slide them in and out. That was one of the best things I seen on one of the videos that I've been researching as I was doing this. You know, there are some fantastic drawer slide systems out there of people who've got decked systems. They've got those coffee table lids that come out. They've got sinks involved. And one thing that I realised in the process of designing these is I massively underestimated realistically just how short these beds are. I had visions of the fridge and then a cooking surface and then a sink area, and it was great. The bed's just not long enough. It's not an American truck. It is probably what Americans would laugh at calling this a pickup truck given the size of them. So if this has been in any way, shape or form a bit of an inspiration for you, please just let me know in the comments. Happy to answer any questions that I can. I am not a woodworker. I'm an IT teacher by trade, so it is something that I just used as a chance to disappear in the garage for a good few weeks and just sort of slowly work on this, and ended up actually a product that I'm really happy with and does also make our camping experience just that little bit better. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to put all of the equipment back into the truck. So I've actually decided against time-lapse, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk you through how I pack this truck, what everything is. If you do want to know what's sort of in the boxes, please do let me know, because that's easy, a video that I could make as a follow-up to show you what I take on a camping trip. But for now, I'm just going to get everything packed up and sort of talk you through what things are, where they are, and sort of if there's anything that interests you, like I say, please do just let me know. So let's start on the far lane first. We'll not even do the drawers. This is our air tent or air annex. It is a Air Seconds Fresh Connect from Decathlon, or Quencher, or Quisha, however you pronounce it. I don't know what it is. I'll put it on the screen, and I'll also put some pictures of what it looks like. This is something I am going to cover in a future video. Let me know if that is something you want to see. But it's made for vans and things like this, and it's just absolutely revolutionised how we can use this vehicle. So yeah, if you want to know more about it, let me know. But for now, as you can see, it's quite big. So this goes in first, goes down the far lane on the driver's side. So that just squeezes in. He says, so we squeeze that in the back. Then what I put in next is our water jug. It's not uncommon that we'll be on a campsite so that we have fresh water, but this is just to save us walking backwards and forwards. It is surprisingly cool in here. One thing I do need to do on this is put a breather valve in somewhere, because it's a nightmare trying to pour out this water without it. Use a bungee strap. I made these, so I bought I can't remember what they're like a hog tie or something. Bought some hog tie pliers to make these. I wanted them orange so that they're easy to find, so if you lose them on the floor you can find them straight away, but also custom sizes. So would highly recommend, if you're making something like this, all of my bungee cords are specific to me and what I'm using them for. So yeah, that's one that's worth doing. That just goes in down the side, and it is bungeed in because obviously this can be quite heavy when it's full. Bungee at the back, bungee at the front, around the handle, and then into the D-ring. There are lots of D-rings about on this bed system for this reason. I'm just trying not to ping my hands because that would not be fun. Yeah, so that just lives in there. Obviously we can't use it because it's too low, but it's just something that's there and dead easy to access. So next, this is our table from Argos. Again, brilliant piece of kit. Folds up very small for the size of it, something that I am probably going to get out on a later video. So that just goes in the side with the air tent. With this space, obviously with the wheel arches, there's a lot of odd shapes, so fitting it in, you've just got to be that little bit more sensible. So to finish off that side, we put our 2 stoves in, which just are these cheap sort of camping gas things. The idea being that obviously this one's upside down, they always are. Just those stoves that you can cook on. We aren't sort of bound by a premium of space, really. So that's why we've got 2 of these big ones. Also, you can use the boxes as a work surface or a windbreak. We've got 2 of them because we just found that one pot just wasn't enough. So they go in down the side of the water bottle. One goes in the little space that may eventually be taken up by an electrical control panel, I'm not sure. The other just kind of gets forced in. The big thing I've got to be aware of is this height across here to make sure that I can still close the roller shutter. That's kind of come with practice for me. So now let's get this out the way, just so I know where it is. If I do it this way, pardon me, that was disgusting. Doing it this way just keeps it out of the way and dead easy to access. So now let's get the boxes for this lane in. They do have these shackles on here. I'm probably not going to put them on in this video, but again, it's just those orange bungee cords that go up over the top. Box 3. This did originally used to be box 1 and 2, and 3 was used for something else in the house, but I smashed the boxes, so box 1 is no longer RMA box 1. So these are something that's going to be remade, but I am going to talk about more of them. So that just pushes in, goes all the way to the back. Lock that one in, it's nice and secure now, it's not going anywhere. This one, let's get the lock up. Now, best way to pack these is the black box first. So, front runner, Wolfpack, or well, the equivalent of, they're all sort of branded by whatever. I got this one from Tough Trek in the UK. It was originally a high lid model, but I needed a low lid to fit under here with what my other plan was, which is this tray. Okay, so the idea is that first aid kit is all in this box. It's quite extensive just because I don't ever want to be without anything I need. And this is kind of a easy access utilities box, but again, we'll cover that in a future video if you would like. So just to stop it sliding around, drilled a little hole in the wolf box. So the cord goes through the side, over the top. And then over the side again. Again, that's now kind of locked to that wolf box. So fridge next. It's easier if we get these out of the way just a little bit. So this is a 35 litre Vevo fridge, however you want to pronounce it. And again, it's got a polar box jacket, I think it is, just for a little bit of extra insulation. Although there are videos out there that suggest these maybe are more detrimental than beneficial. But it was 35 quid, I think, so I've just put it on anyway. For the sake of the video, I'm not going to strap up the back. You can see that even though it's still quite heavy, there's no risk of that coming out. The fridge is empty, but even if the fridge was full, you can still slide it one-handed, dead easy. So push that all the way back in, lock that in. So those HDPE sliders is working perfectly, rather than the £200 drawer slides, which would actually make this thinner, because you'd have to have the width of the drawer either side. The HDPE, I think this is 5mm I've got on the bottom, so it just slides that easy. So that's in there now. Okay, I have got to make sure that this strap for the so that additional tray that I've got on the top of the wolf box is probably 2mm too high, so it does collide with the shutter a little bit. I am eventually just going to remake those into 2 boxes rather than a tray with boxes on, so that's something that will come in a future video, because you won't be able to see it, but those boxes are smashed already and they're just brittle and plastic. I'm going to remake them out of wood, Raptor line them as well, so that's an upcoming improvement. Now we get our deck chairs in. Again, using the space to pack sensibly. Got the wheel arch here, so the small end goes in first. Small end goes in first. So that's 2 deck chairs. Get that underneath. We have our shore power hookup, which will hopefully just fit in there just a little bit. It did originally go there. There is points when it just becomes a bit of a shove it in and hope. So that's pretty much about where that'll go. Push them in and then it fits. We then have our, what's probably your most stereotypical British piece of camping equipment, which is this lovely coloured tarpaulin windbreak. That just slides on top of the boxes. 2 telescopic awning poles. These ones are from Stitches and Steel. Brilliant pieces of kit, would highly recommend them. In a different video I'll show you what we use these for. Again, they either live on the top or down the side. If I've got the bungees on here, the orange bungees to hold these on, they would live on top just to stop them sliding around. And then last but not least is a changing tent. We don't always use this, but it's just there so that we've got it, and that can just live sort of nicely on the top somewhere. And now that's it, we close it up. Just take my strap off. Again, this is where I think if my shutter worked properly, it would be a bit easier. You just pull it shut, lock it, that's that locked. I can then shut up that, lock that, and now this is totally secure. This is locked, and all my camping equipment is safe. So the only things I would change don't actually really relate to the drawers themselves. Yeah, there's a little bit of like finish work that I'll probably do, but that's probably just going to be an annual maintenance job. Respray them with Raptor every year. The one thing I definitely would advise and do differently is prime them first in some way, shape or form, because they just drunk paint. You can get specific Raptor primer or any other kind of plywood primer I assume would work. You would have to check. The locks, maybe I want to put the locks maybe on the front rather than on the inside, because they do catch on things. But the big thing that I do want to change is the plastic boxes. I am going to make them out of wood eventually, probably softwood ply, probably 9mm. 18mm just seems a little bit excessive. Might do 18mm as the base, just for that weight in the bottom to hold them down. But that means I can make the boxes completely bespoke to what I need. The 2 big plastic boxes are probably going to become 4 smaller ones. I am going to change the tray on top of the wolf box. That's definitely going to change. Would have loved to have this just purely wolf boxes, but the height constraint is the issue. No matter what configuration I used, whether it's a high lid or a low lid, I couldn't get 2 wolf boxes on top of each other under the shutter, which is such a shame because we were only millimeters off being able to do that, really. But by the time you add 18mm of the draw layer, 18mm of the base layer, and the 5-6mm of the HDPE, we just couldn't get any space in there. Yes, could have probably used thinner ply, but it's first time round, so that's just the only thing I would change. Also, wolf boxes are really expensive, so that's something that I would potentially look at, but wouldn't work on my setup anyway, so it's not something I need to worry about. Other than that, just really happy with how it works. It's completely revolutionised how we use this system. It's made our camping experiences so much better. You don't have to crawl into the back of the truck anymore, all the way back here, to try and grab something. You just pull the drawer out and there it is. It's something that we've noticed on sites and at stop-ups that people look at, they ask us questions about, and it just means that we're there and ready to go. Like I say, you've seen how quickly it is to pack up. There's nothing left here, and yet, other than an extra box of food that we keep in the cab when we do it, we're adventure ready. This lives in my garage, and I literally go from the shelf into the truck, and that's it, we're ready to go. Like I say, I like to call it adventure ready. All we need to add is food and clothes, and then we're off and gone. Everything is in these boxes. Like I say, if you want to know what's in these boxes, please do let me know. It's a video I plan on making, but if there's enough sort of requests, I will bump that up the list just so that you can see what's in there. So if you've enjoyed this video or my other content, please do consider subscribing. The analytics say that a lot of people aren't, and whilst my channel's in this sort of small growing phase, it really does help, as do all of your likes and comments and everything that I can do to improve. Please do just let me know. Other than that, have a great day, and I'll see you in the next video. Thanks. Bye bye.